Hey guys. Wow, this is a change. No, I've got the light on in the kitchen here, and the image on the camera doesn't look all washed out and orangey. That's usually a sure sign that I've recorded the video in the evening. But then there's also still a lot of light coming in outside. You know, it's past 8 o'clock at night, but you know, these parts, summertime, 8 o'clock at night. What is this sunset you speak of? Sun's not going to be set. The sun's not going to be below the horizon till like 9ish. It happens. So it reminds me of back when I was in Germany with the 66 Mi. During the summertime, it's just like sunset. That was around sometime like 10 in the evening. The morning birds would start chirping sometime a little shy of 4 in the morning. It's like by 5:30, it's bright as day. So anyways, green cards in Invasion itself. You find a lot of, you know, basic variations on your old classic bread and butter cards. Things with kicker or things with a domain type effect. For example, you got explosive growth. It's a green. Target creature gets +2/+2. If you pay the kicker cost of 5 colorless mana, the creature would get +5/+5 instead. The kicker cost is redonkulously high. Higher than it had any real right to be, if you asked me. I mean, if you had a kicker cost of like a colorless and a green, that'd have been awesome. But it doesn't. Of course, it's only a common, and oh well. So there's cards all over the place. Been hanging around the cat too much. Lawnmower Elite. He's a 1/1 trample for 1. Kicker of 8 colorless. If you paid the kicker cost, he comes in with 5 +1/+1 counters. That's kind of interesting in a way. I mean, it's a 1, you know. I think he'd be more interesting if you printed him, if he was reprinted today with like a less conservative kicker cost. Thornscape Apprentice. I talked about the apprentices already. Vigorous Charge. Creature instant green. Target creature gains trample till end of turn. If you paid white, you'll also gain till end of turn. You gain life equal to how much damage he does. You know, pretty basic bread and butter thing. Whip Silk, enchanted aura, enchanted creature gains reach, and you can pay green to bounce it to your owner's hand. We saw that also in white with I believe with Shackles. It's aura that you can bounce to owner's hand. I want to say there was a cycle of them in every color. If I'm right on that, we'll see more tomorrow in red. Aggressive Urge. Colorless and a green, instant, target creature gets +1/+1 to end of turn, draw a card. They wanted to put more cantrips and stuff into the game, inspired by the so-called slow trips in Ice Age and the regular cantrips that you saw some of. I want to say Mirage? Not 100% certain, it's been a while. Bind, obscure little rare, colorless and a green for an instant, counter target activated ability, draw a card. I think Bind was printed for a bunch of reasons, one of which was because of Rishadan Port in Mercadian Masks ended up being a really powerful control card back in the day. There were a couple of different cards printed in Invasion that were meant to be an answer for it. Just like, for example, Anvil of Bogarden in Mirage was specifically designed to hose Necropotence. Because the original wording on the Anvil said skip your discard step. That said all players skip their discard step. And the discard step is when Necropotence told you to draw your cards. So yeah, I mean, it's been happening for years. When something ends up getting out of hand, they try to print answers for it and see if the answers work. And as often as not, they don't. We saw that recently with Jason the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge Mystic. They printed a couple of cards at New Phyrexia that were meant as answers to that. You had I want to say it was the Torpor Orb, I can't remember exactly what it's called, the artifact that says comes into play abilities don't function. That was specifically meant to host Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic was a massive card advantage engine. You know, it hits the board, you tutor for an equipment, and then you can, you know, tap him to put that equipment onto the board. And of course, when you combined him with Jace the Mind Sculptor, you can just say, yeah, I'm going to use Jason, bounce it, play it again, and get another equipment. It's all good. So yeah, that was kind of wacky. That, and of course, they had a couple of cards printed specifically to host Jace. The artifact creature where you'd pay like X and a Phyrexian black, I believe it was, to remove X counters off target permanent to give itself plus X plus O till end of turn, or something wacky like that. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But that was meant to be a Jace hoser. So yeah, I mean, if you go back, you'll actually find every now and again they print cards specifically to hose other cards that are causing a lot of trouble in Standard, and usually it just plain doesn't work. And they hate banning cards, they really do. It's been their policy for a long time not to have a restricted list in Standard. Standard at one point in time did have a restricted list. And it's because of this that there's this lovely trivia question that Hymn to Torak is the only common ever to be restricted. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, there's Bind. That got me off. Blurred Mongoose. Can't be countered as Shroud. It's a 2/1 for a colorless and a green. It mostly designed as a blue hoser and removal hoser. Canopy Surge. 1 damage to all creatures with flying, and each player, if you paid the kicker cost of 2 colorless, which would bring the casting cost of the card from a colorless and a green to 3 colorless and a green, it's 4 damage instead. Basically, it's like a mini Hurricane. There was also a Breath of Darigaaz, which we'll come to later in red, that was a mini Earthquake along the same lines. It's okay. Elthame Sanctuary. In your upkeep, you may search your library for a basic land, reveal, put it in hand. If you do, skip your draw step. It's kind of interesting. I'm wondering if maybe this sees any play in EDH these days. I don't know. But yeah, that's an interesting little color fixer. Fertile Ground, well, it's an effect of light of which has existed before, though I don't know if it's technically ever been quite done this way. It's a colorless and a green. It's a land enchantment. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, controller adds 1 mana of any color to their pool in addition to whatever they get from the land. It's kid science. It's fun. It's a lovely little mana fixture. No frills, it does what it does. Kavu Titan, he's a 2/2 for the colorless and a green, with a kicker of 2 colorless and a green. If you pay the kicker, he comes in with 3 +1/+1 counters and trample. He used to be really, really big back in the day. I mean, really big. He was a power card back in the day. And these days, he really wouldn't be anything special. You know, it's like, hold on a second. 3 and double green for a 5/5 trample? Most people wouldn't bat an eye at it. They seriously wouldn't. Though he is nice for the flexibility. Might Weaver, I mentioned the Weaver cycle. We touched on it yesterday. The Might Weaver gives white or red creature trample till end of turn. Nomadic Elf, he's a 2/2 for a colorless and a green. You pump a colorless and a green to him for 1 mana of any color. He's a basic mana filtering card, no frills, but he's decent at what he does. I mean, he's not, he's not Sky Shroud Elves or anything like that, but hey, you know, he's got a decent, he's respectable. I mean, he's a bear. He's a bear with color converting built in. And a better tribe. He's an elf. Elf is a good tribe. But, heavens forbid, this guy actually ended up being a nasty trick for me once in a draft game. I was playing predominantly white and green. I think I had a splash of red as well. And my opponent comes at me. I assign some blockers, and I had the white master on the board, the Sunscape Master, whose green ability was target creature gets +2/+2 end of turn. The blue ability was return target creature to owner's hand. And he wasn't expecting me to be able to bounce one of my creatures. And I said, okay, I use that to bounce a creature. And then he's like, wait a second, how did you do that? Where'd you get the blue mana for that? And I was like, I'm like, him! And they're like, oh, let me see that. I'm no fooling. Totally overlooked them. Kieran Elves, another lovely mana fixer. It's a colorless and a green for a 1/1. Taps for green. When he comes into play, you choose a color, he taps for that color as well. Not bad. Serviceable. Kieran Sentinel, colorless and a green for 2/1. When he hits play, add 1 mana of color of your choice to your pool. He's okay. I'm not wild about him. Saproling Infestation. Colorless and a green. Whenever a player pays a kicker cost, you get a 1/1 green Saproling. Doesn't care who the player is. Could be you. Could be your opponent. Could be the guy on the other side of the table. Scouting Trek. Search your library for any number of basic lands. Reveal, shuffle, put them on top in order of choice. That's a card that can work both ways. That's a card that can hurt you if you go nuts with it. Tangle. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. Attacking creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap steps. That's a fun little card. It's kind of actually familiar to Spore Cloud, similar to Spore Cloud from Fallen Empires, but it's lower costed. Utopia Tree. The fun thing about Utopia Tree is they decided, I believe it was in 7th edition, I believe it was, to stop reprint. It was either in 6th or 7th, I can't remember. But they decided to stop reprinting Birds of Paradise. So Utopia Tree was its replacement. It's a colorless and a green for 0/2, taps 1 of any color. It's okay. I mean, it costs more than Bop, but on the other hand, unlike Bop, you can actually use it to like block a 1/1. I'm not wild about it. I mean, it's nice for what it does, but I'm not wild about it. Wallop, destroy target blue or black creature with flying. Generally, when you want, that's just too narrow of a hoser. It ended up not being a very popular card. Harrow, oh dear. Harrow is a card that, when it first saw print, I believe it was in Tempest, was the first printing of Harrow. Harrow is a card that I just didn't get the first time I saw it. I just looked down and I'm like, hold on, I'm sacrificing a land to get 2 lands. So I'm getting a net profit of 1 land. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to just sack a land to, in the long run, I'm actually lowering my total mana production capacity. I thought about it all wrong. I'll be perfect one. Yeah, I was kind of scrubby back in the day on that. You know, these days, I long ago learned, yeah, Harrow is good. Harrow is really good. Harrow is one of those cards that I had to have demonstrated to me the hard way why it's good. And when I say the hard way, I mean people pasted the crap out of me because they used Harrow to mana fix and color accelerate and beat the snot out of me. Kavu Lair, whenever a creature with power 4 or greater comes into play, its controller draws a card. It's alright. I don't think it ever ended up being terrifyingly popular. Lanwar Cavalry, it's 1/4, you pump white, gains vigilance till end of turn, no big deal. Lanwar Vanguard, it's a 1/1, tap it to give itself +0/+4 till end of turn. I'm not too wild about it. One of the interesting things on it, though, is that the art, you can't really get a good look at it here, but the art, it's a Dryad. It's very derivative of the Mercadian Masks Dryads, But on the other hand, they tried for a long time to make Dryads into something that resembled a halfway decent tribe. Masks was the only time you really saw much in the way of Dryad tribe being exploited. And even then, it really wasn't fantastic. So, there's that. Pincer Spider, it's a 2/3 with reach for 3 mana. You pay the kicker, 3 colors, comes in with an addition with a single +1/+1 counter. Wow. There you go, folks. 6 mana for a 3/4 reach. I wouldn't pay that. Unless, of course, it was limited and I just, had a lot of extra mana to spare. Tranquility, it's old, it's a reprint, it's been around, I want to say, since Alpha. 2 colors and a green sorcery, nuke every enchantment on the board, just gone. It's okay, it's solid, it's not exceptional in any way, shape, or form. Been around for ages. Veteran Emissary, 2/3 with a kicker of a color and a red, hits the board, nuke an artifact, can't be regenerated. Can't be regenerated clauses actually kind of nice. Wandering Stream, it's a domain spell, you gain 2 life for each basic land type under your control. Whoopie flippin' D. Elvish Champion, interesting one. Elves for a long time didn't have a lord. Of all your basic tribes, even as far back as Alpha, you had Zombie Master, which gave all zombies Swamp Walk and allowed them to regenerate for black. You had Lord of Atlantis that gave all merfolk Island Walk and +1/+1. Goblin King gave all goblins +1/+1 Mountain Walk and inspired jokes about Billy Idol. Or was it David Bowie? I'm trying to remember. For some reason I always get those two mixed up in my head. Yeah, it was David Bowie. I'm sorry. It's David Bowie. For those of you who don't get the reference, David Bowie played Jareth the Goblin King in the movie Labyrinth. It's actually a cute little movie. It's more or less it's child appropriate, heavens forbid it, but it's a fun little movie. I can't even remember the name of the girl who's the main star in it, but she ended up growing up to be a quite popular actress and quite a looker, as the expression goes. But all well and good. Oh yeah, coffee. So, anyways, as far as there was no Elvish champion. What else? Was there any kind of a champion in white at the time? I can't recall. I don't think so. But elves were a popular tribe. They got a lot of printings out of them, a lot of different elf creatures over the years, and they never really had a proper lord. I mean, you had Kesa and Alliances, who gave all green creatures +1/+1, but she was legendary. You could only have one of her on the board. You had the Juniper Order Advocates, but as long as they're untapped, they gave all green creatures +1/+1, and they were white. So you didn't have, a proper lord in mono green. The first real elf lord you got was Eladamri, Lord of Leaves, who gave all other elves Forest Walk and Shroud. All well and good. People still weren't particularly pleased with that, though. You get things like Rofalos, Lawnmower Emissary. I don't even remember what the heck he did. But anyway, yeah, they finally printed Elvish Champion, 2/2 for Coulson, double green. All other elves get +1/+1 in Forest Walk. Finally printed that in Invasion. One of the interesting things about it is right in the middle of Invasion block, 7th edition got printed, and Elvish Champion was reprinted in 7th edition. That was kind of bizarre. Something like that had never happened before. You never saw a card get reprinted in a base set while it was still in print in another set. It just didn't happen. These days, you see it actually happen a little bit. I want to say the various M sets have done a little bit along those lines, I want to say. But still, it's not terrifyingly common. Pulse of Lanoir, cute little enchantments, 3 colors and a green. The basic land you control, basic land, that's important, is tapped for mana. It produces a mana of color of your choice instead. We've got Kirin Trailblazer. When it hits the board, you can search your library for a basic land, put it into play tapped. It's okay. I think it's overcosted. You know, it's 3 colors in the green for a 1/2. Saproling Symbiosis, 3 colors in the green, it's a sorcery. If you pay an extra 2 colorless, you can play it whenever you could play an instant. Yeah, that was a common theme. You might recall Route yesterday. Basically, it's you get a Saproling token for each creature you control. So you just count your number of creatures you control, and you give yourself that many Saproling tokens. If you're already running a Saproling deck, that can theoretically be a redonkulous number of critters. Just redonkulous. Let's see here. Jade Leech. Here's the green leech. He's 2 colors and double green for a 5/5. I mean, 4 mana for a 5/5 generally isn't bad, but the fact that he inflates the casting cost of your green spells really makes him kind of ho-hum. That and he's also got like no evasion ability. It's not even the ghetto evasion of Trample. Rooting Kavu. He's a 4/3. If he goes to your graveyard from play, you remove him from the game. If you do, shuffle all creature cards in your graveyard into your library. It's kind of interesting. I think Rooting Kavu is like, one of these days, maybe I'm going to like, make a parody of the 12 Days of Christmas and put Rooting Kavu in there somewhere. Da 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 da. Rooting Kavus. Da 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 da. 5 foil soul rings. Yeah. Anyways, Thornscape Master, the green Thornscape Master. Yes. 2 colors, double green for a 2/2. Pump double red and tap. 2 damage target creature. Double white and tap. Target creature gains color protection of your choice till end of turn. That's pretty saucy. Serpentine Kavu, 4 colors in the green for a 4/4. Pump red gains haste till end of turn. He's bread and butter. He's okay. I don't think he saw much constructed use. Didn't really deserve to. Treefolk Healer. He's a 2/3, a 5 mana. 2 colors on a white, tap to prevent the next 2 damage that will be dealt to target creature or player this turn. I seriously think that's kind of I mean, I could understand the relatively high casting cost if the cost of his ability was cheaper, but with them both being that high cost, he's... Blech. Kavu Chameleon. 3 colors, double green for a 4/4, can't be countered. Pump green to change his color to that of your choice. Given that this was a block where you had a lot of color matters cards, him being able to change colors was really, really nice. Kavu Climber, who's actually pretty solid. He's a 3/3 for 5 mana. When he hits the board, you draw a card. I would gladly see this guy reprinted. It's not bad. Restock's interesting. It's 3 and double green for sorcery. 2 cards from your graveyard back to your hand, exile Restock. Part of the ongoing attempt to try to make a newer, better, non-broken Regrowth. And Restock was okay. Even though it's a rare, I don't think it ever saw a lot of play outside of limited, like, draft, sealed deck. I'm fumbling cards here. Thicket Elemental. Also a rare. He's a 4/4 with a kicker of a colorless and a green. Comes to play if you paid the kicker cost. You may reveal cards from the top of your library into your real creature. If you do, put it into play and shuffle. All of the cards revealed this way, blah, 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 blah. It's not bad, but once again, I don't think it ever saw competitive play. Suam Jin, another member of the Jin cycle, where if I'm a member of the most common color on the board, I get penalized. He's a 6/6 trample, gets -2/2 as long as green is the most common color. Vertaloth the Ancient, legendary Treefolk. He's a 4/7 for 6 mana with Kicker X. All other Treefolk and Saplings get +1/+1. And when he comes into play, if you paid the kicker cost, you gain X 1/1 Sapling tokens. If he had been printed today, they might even go so far as to say multi-kicker 1 instead of kicker X. I don't know, though. I don't know. And then we have Mimo, Morrow Sorcerer, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. He's trample. He's basically a better version of Dakin Blackblade. Dakin Blackblade was, I want to say it was black, blue, and white, and he had a comparable casting cost to Molino. Had pretty much the same ability, but he didn't have trample. For those of you not familiar with Dakin Blackblade, you can see his spawn in later years. What are you doing, cat? You gonna jump back up on the fridge? Yes, you is. Silly cat. But yeah, you'd see his spawn in later years in the Future Sight set as Korlash, heir to Blackblade. Supposedly part of Dakin Blackblade's story is that his sword contains his shadow, and he doesn't actually have a shadow himself. Kind of wacky and funky. I kind of wish I did know a little bit more about some of the legendary characters. I'm willing to bet the information is out there somewhere in a wiki, but you know, it's how it is. There are a lot of times that I don't get certain things done that I think I should get done, because when I'm thinking of it, I don't have what I need to do it at hand, and when I have what I need to do it at hand, I'm not thinking of it. I'm sure we've all been there, done that, etc., etc., etc. Story of my life, right, guys? Alrighty. Call this a wrap. Get it posted. Hopefully YouTube doesn't take forever and a day processing it. Be good, fellas.